Business Live. Here's Jay, Karen, and Don Rea.
All right, Jay, I think we get started. Well, hey, good afternoon and welcome to the first episode of Golf Business Live, the Friday edition. We're going to do this every Friday at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You can expect all kinds of videos and shows like these from the NGCOA over the coming weeks. And they're good for owners and operators everywhere. I mean, we are all in this together. My name is Don Rea. I'm an owner-operator of Augusta Ranch Golf Club in Mesa, Arizona. I'm a past board of director for the PGA of America. I'm currently a board of director for the NGCOA and the Arizona NGCOA. And today, Jay and I are going to talk. Jay Karen's the CEO of the NGCOA. And Jay, got anything to say today to welcome our audience?
Well, it's always good chatting with you, Don, and to the folks on the line. Glad you joined us. And we're not going to waste a lot of your time today. We're going to cut to the chase in a minute. But I want to let everybody know there is a Q&A button probably in the bottom of your screen. That's the way to communicate with us. And we have a staff member logged in, paying attention to those questions that will answer technical questions, and we'll try to get you answered. But if you have questions for Don and me, we'll be able to address those as many as we can at the end of our Q&A together for the last 10 or 15 minutes. So be sure to use the Q&A to reach out to NGCOA staff online right now, and for Don and I to address at the bottom of our half hour or so.
Yeah, we will just jump right into the questions. You know, I think anytime we can use video, it's just important to see and feel somebody. You know, I know I'm better in person than on paper, so I really like this medium in order for us, everybody out there, tell you a little bit about what's going on at Augusta Ranch with the NGCOA and golf in general, at least the way I see it out here on the West Coast. So this will be very interesting, I think, for everybody involved. So right now, Jay, NGCOA, I mean, what's going on in the office right now? There's got to be a lot going on.
Well, like for a lot of folks, it's a new normal for us. Everyone is working out of home offices. But it seems that, over the last couple of weeks, it seems as though we were built for crisis management. I'm telling you, it's a very hardworking team at the NGCOA headquarters. We work very well together. We have a very positive culture, and it's translated beautifully into this isolated environment where we're communicating over video and instant messaging and so forth. So it's going very well for us. But you know what, Don, there's something to be said. I mean, you're on our board. There's something to be said for being singular in focus. Our communication lines have been wide open, and it's been all about helping the members on this particular issue. So yeah, we're doing well.
So quick follow-up to that would just be obviously something we're very good at with the NGCOA is kind of the federal public policy front. So anything going on there that you'd like to address right now?
Well, a quick recap on what's happened on this front. First of all, it's been really inspiring to see really all of the major golf organizations collaborate and work closely on this. It's been historic for us, and the leaders in golf have been working very well together to try to stay on the same page and get as much information out as possible. So, in summary, there have been 3 pieces of legislation that have come out to support relief after, and during this crisis. And it's really the second and third bills that apply to golf course owners and operators. The second bill, which we've, already looked beyond because we're so focused on the third bill, but the second bill addressed sick leave, paid sick leave, and the adjustments to the Family Medical Leave Act that will allow employees to take the time off that they need to based on COVID-19 issues. And employers may have to come out of pocket for that, but they get tax credits on the backside in order to ease that cost. So but we quickly moved on to phase 3 of the legislation, which everybody knows is called the CARES Act. It seems like all of America is getting pretty darn familiar with this. Essentially, it has unleashed an enormous loan program for the small businesses around America. And different from what happened in 2008 in the financial crisis, this has been a focus on small businesses, which is a really good thing to see because we're the backbone of the American economy. So the SBA, Small Business Administration, has been overwhelmed with seeing tens of thousands of applications to get loans, and everybody's been focusing on what's called the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Plan. And the reason they're focusing on that is because it is a loan, but one that can be forgiven. So the loan turns into a grant if you're using the funding primarily for payroll and you're keeping your staff paid. If you reduce your staff, then you may get a reduction in the ability for forgiveness on some of that stuff. So a lot of requirements that are all loaded up on our website you should take a look at. But that's where a lot of the focus has been. There are two open issues right now that we're trying to address at NGCOA with regard to phase 3 of this legislation. One has to do with seasonal businesses, because the way they want businesses to calculate average payroll to figure out how much they should loan you is for seasonal businesses, they're telling you to take an average 8-week kind of pay period between February and June. Well, if your high season is July, August, and September, you may get shortchanged in the calculation of what you put out there as your payroll. So that's one fix that we're trying to work hard on. The second one is if you're a golf course owner or operator and you hired a management company with 500 or more employees at their corporation, it's very confusing as if you can qualify for the Paycheck Protection Plan, because on paper you may have 0 employees because that management company may provide your employees, but the large management company may be too big to apply for the same funding on your behalf. But you're, as the owner, you're paying for that payroll ultimately. So we're trying to work through that. The restaurant and hotel industry got an exemption and are able to apply for this, but golf courses of that ilk were kind of left out. So we're focusing hard on those two open issues, hoping that we can get some clarification out of the Small Business Administration on those issues, and or in the 4th phase of legislation, make sure that it's fixed, because usually subsequent legislation deals with fixes of legislation that already passed. So we're working hard on that. And I'll close out with this on that particular topic, Don, is, you know, the sin list that has plagued our industry forever. Thank God we have not seen any sniff of that in any of this legislation. So that's good, but we have to remain vigilant, because you never know when a staffer in some congressional office says, hey, on the next level of funding, let's make sure that we refer to Section 144 of the tax code so these businesses don't get to qualify. So far, so good. Our folks have been on the ground managing this, and no sniff of that, but we have to get a permanent fix at some point on that. And then lastly, you know, state and local issues are, you know, crazy. It's hard to monitor everything going on out there, but people should start paying attention to what state and local agencies are coming up with as supplemental relief aid. Everybody's been focused all on Washington, but take a look at what your states are doing as well. State and local economies. I just saw yesterday something in Ann Arbor, Michigan, that's giving out small grants and loans to small businesses, right? So pay attention, ask your Convention and Visitors Bureau, ask your chambers of commerce, find out what's going on locally that may supplement what's happening on the federal level. So that's kind of in a nutshell, Don, what we're seeing.
No, that's good. And hey, thanks for the questions and comments already that are coming online. Mark, Portland Lee, I appreciate you. I'll give you a little shout out for getting on there early. So that's good to know. You know, certainly I've been overcome with all the information from the PGA of America, the NGCOA. I think the GCSA just came out with something also. Every association is doing their best to make sure that we all have that information, but it's still confusing. I mean, I was trying to fill out the paperwork the other day, and there's just a lot of questions. And like you said, in my season right now, it's almost over. And I would normally be laying people off. And now all of a sudden, what's going to happen with that forgiveness of some of that loan if I was going to lay people off anyways, just because of the seasonality of my business? So I think rest assured, just apply for those funds, and we can worry about it later. But thanks for what you're doing on that front, Shay. That's awesome. You know, I can certainly speak to what's happening out here in Arizona, maybe even in the West Coast of golf courses, and maybe across the nation. I've been talking to a lot of PGA professionals, but give me your take, Jay, on just the open and close and what's going on around the nation with golf courses and what they're facing, whether they're going to be open or closed.
So, you know, this obviously has been a moving target since this all started. And for a while there, it was literally changing by the hour. But as of today, and this is an approximation, about 12 states have executive orders to close, you know, where golf is pretty clear, golf needs to be closed. About 13 states where it's a mixed bag, where, you know, there's a lot of closures at the county and local level, but the state may not be clear on it. And then about half of the country is still under a pretty much a green light situation for golf courses. So right now, you know, Don, it feels like a privilege to be open. Honestly, you know, when you look at all the businesses closing down, but one that's justified based on what we've all been talking about. We understand, you know, the nature of golf is very different than a lot of businesses out there. And thankfully, a lot of officials have recognized that, right? So that's good. We know that we can operate a relatively safe golf experience for a lot of our patrons. But we have to make sure that golf courses, number one, are complying with any local, you know, state, federal laws and ordinances. That's number one, is whatever the law is, follow it. You know, this is not a time to be thumbing your nose at any particular law. So number two, though, is if you are fortunate enough to be open and you're welcoming golfers, and a lot of folks, their teeth sheets are busting at the seams, that please be the social distance police and the sanitation police with that touch of hospitality, of course, because there are, social media reports and photos and things out there in space now really lambasting golf courses for being open and not necessarily following the proper protocol or requiring their golfers to, crowds up on the driving range or what have you. So we have to be model citizens on this if we're going to continue to be privileged to be open during all of this time, because there will be a pecking order as when we get beyond the peak of all this, as what gets to open first. I can't see the reverse. I can't see someone flipping the switch and everybody's open all of a sudden. There's going to probably be a pecking order. And those golf courses that are closed would love to be first to be open, obviously. So let's be sure that we're acting as responsibly as we can with regard to the privilege that we have to be open right now. And to that point, as you all know, what's quickly become a nice standard out there in the industry is the Park and Play program that we put out there a couple of weeks ago. It's a checklist for any owner operator, and you can supplement it with greater standards if you want to, but it's a checklist of operations to do our best to provide a socially distant, safe experience for our golfers. For those that choose to remain open. The checklist was approved by physicians that are involved with the Infectious Diseases Society of America. So it's quickly becoming, it has become a nice standard out there for the industry to adopt. So we've got that for you on the NGCOA website if you want to download the checklist and hand it to your staff.
Yeah, no doubt. I downloaded it myself. And once again, I think the club managers, the NGCOA, the GCSA, and the PGA are doing a tremendous job of giving these materials in there. But they don't work if you don't print them out. And you're exactly right, Jay. I mean, something I've experienced already is shaming has begun a little bit. People are taking pictures of groups of people on golf courses. Homeowners here at Augusta Ranch see two people riding in the same car together and wonder, are they married or not? So we certainly have to do things the right way, because if we don't, there'll be sure to be somebody out there. I mean, I keep reminding the staff and the people who play Augusta Ranch that, listen, only 8% of the population plays golf. The perception is that we're not for the public. And yet 12,000 golf courses out there that are public. But public or private, golf is giving some great benefits right now, mental health, physical health, but we've got to do it by the book. Even Governor Ducey, right here in the state of Arizona, who said that we are an essential business because he felt outdoor recreation was essential, that even though he gave you that as a golf course, you better follow the 6-foot rule, the less than 10 rule, to make sure that you're abiding by those things, that he's not afraid to pull the plug. So yeah, to all of my fellow owner operators out there, just make sure your staff is doing it. You might have to go out there and show them once again, almost every day, the proper way to sanitize the golf court, to make sure that we're not cutting corners, because we would do it at the expense of the health of our own staffs and obviously the people who play our golf course. So the Park and Ride program, Jay, I thought was awesome. I mean, anything else coming down the pipe that you can kind of get us excited for, or are we go into a different chapter now of, okay, what happens when we reopen? I mean, what do you got?
Yeah, so for those of you that lived through the recession of 08-09, it's like, at what point when that was happening did we realize that we were in something, right? It took a lot of folks weeks and weeks and weeks to admit and realize that we are in this downfall, right? And by that time, it's a bit late to respond. For this, we've had some warnings, and we know we're in it. So we're certainly building the plane as we're flying it a little bit, but we have ample space and time to work on these issues. So we are putting out more content just on this, Don. So everybody should go to, any golf course owner operator can go to our COVID-19 landing page on our website. Just go to ngcoa.org. You'll see it front and center. You can click on that. You'll see, once you get to that page, we've aggregated a ton of information on the new federal laws, the SBA information, advice on operating your golf course. We've categorized it for you. It's all there. What we've also done is just yesterday, we opened up our member-only forum called Accelerate. And it's probably one of the most valuable resources we have, where owners and operators are talking to each other online, either in the online tool or just through email. It's all together. And we opened it up to the non-members to be able to use till the end of May, because we want them to be able to connect with more peers. And just within 24 hours, we've had about 100 golf courses enroll and enlist in that so far. So we've opened that up until the end of May. this Golf Business Live, you'll see more of these kinds of broadcasts of live content with Q&A. We're going to record this and record the other ones and send it out to the entire industry so they can consume this. And then we're also going to experiment a little bit with more Zoom rooms. While this is Zoom technology, there's something we want to do called Zoom rooms, where we might bring in no more than 10 or 15 operators into the room, where they can talk with each other and a subject matter expert in the room with them. Because we have over 100, right now we've got 110 participants right now on this. There's no way we can open this up and have dialogue. But if we cut it off at 10 or 15, allow for dialogue with a subject matter expert on these issues, we can record that and then send it out to owners and operators to consume. We think that'll be a new dynamic and something really important to put out there. So that's right now coming down the pipe, but we're going to retool Golf Business Magazine. We're retooling Golf Business Podcast. And, I would imagine any upcoming events we're going to put on are all going to be retooled based on what's probably going to be a new normal for us.
Yeah, certainly Accelerate was way ahead of its time. I mean, that's kind of what got me involved at the NGCOA, is when it was called Listserv, and it was just a way to coordinate and collaborate with other golf course owners. And I wasn't even one at the time. I just aspired to be one. So I just thought it was powerful. Certainly now with Facebook, I was looking at a Facebook page, Golf Professional Natural Disaster Best Practices. And all of these golf professionals, PJ or otherwise, are on this page and sharing best practices. And certainly that's been something that I think has helped me. But yeah, well done. I think, Jay, you and your staff certainly, I wouldn't call you the little engine that could, but you are such a small staff and a small budget, but yet you've become a force in the industry now and leading the industry. I just applaud you and the staff for what you're doing. These are hard times because we're also trying to take care of our families at home. And yet we're putting in the hours at work because we care about golf, we care about owners. Obviously, you care about your members. So I appreciate that as a member.
I appreciate that.
And as a board member.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Don. I appreciate that. We've got a great team. But I'm going to turn the tables on you now and ask you a couple of questions, because we've got a lot of owners, operators watching, and they love to hear from peers. Tell us about some of the adjustments that you've been making at Augusta Ranch. What have you been seeing from the customers? What adjustments have you been making to your operations? And what do you feel like was effective and what's really difficult?
Yeah, as I touch my face, every time you touch your face nowadays, right, you say to yourself, well, why did I just touch my face?
Apparently that's difficult for you.
Well, I'd speak with my hands. You would think that I'm Italian. I don't know, but it's such a fluid situation. It's ever changing. And I can't even credit anybody here at Augusta Ranch, myself included, with coming up with any of these ideas. It was just constantly reaching out to my fellow PGA professionals and golf course owners to say, hey, what are you doing? And then seeing stuff on Facebook, maybe modifying a little bit for Augusta Ranch and making it happen. I mean, certainly the basis of all of this, and something we've tried to tell the legislators here in Arizona, none of this is about profit in rounds of golf. None of it. That hasn't been the why of why we're doing all of this stuff. The why is, like you were saying, Jay, these customers that are playing, and they're older here this time of year. There's certainly the Canadians, which typically play Augusta Ranch this time of year. They all migrated home. They got a letter on roughly March 13th that said if they weren't back in Canada within 10 days and they were to test positive for COVID, they might lose their insurance. And so they all left. And I think, like any migration, when some flock of birds see another flock of birds leaving, they all tend to go, well, it must be time to go. And that certainly happened here at Augusta Ranch. This is our peak season, the last 2 weeks, because of spring training, typically our busiest time. I mean, if you wanted to hurt Augusta Ranch, you would hurt us the last 3 weeks of March, which, whether it was Mother Nature or the COVID-19 virus, that's exactly what happened. And so we've had to deal with it. Even here at Augusta Ranch, we had 2 employees that were self-quarantined. One because, Josh had a baby. Little Henry was born. And so we said, you shouldn't be here for 2 weeks just to be safe. And then Brian, his daughter, was kind of sick, and the doctor said, hey, she's negative for everything, but you should stay home. So as any owner, as any PGA professional would, we had to jump in and work a lot of shifts to make it happen. So I will tell you, any owner, if you're sitting behind your desk, and I don't think you are, or any PGA professional, if you're sitting behind your desk, you got to get out in your business right now. You got to be walking around and talking to the very customers that are out there, seeing what they're doing. How are they wiping down the carts? Maybe the way you're sanitizing your cart with whatever solution you may be using, you're not hitting the spots that they're doing when you see them on the pad, because they are cleaning after you clean. One thing that we did utilize here at Augusta Ranch, and you could see it on some of our videos, is I felt even for the staff and for the clientele of Augusta Ranch, I had to use some kind of video so they could see me, they could hear the tone of my voice to say, this is what we're doing at Augusta Ranch. And I do think it was impactful for both the staff, knowing that we were being very proactive in our market, in our state even, and that for the clients to know that we were doing the same. So, some of the typical things, remove the rakes from the golf course. We put bags over all the ball washers. If somebody wants to ride in a separate cart, absolutely. There's no additional charge to that. I know that's going to be some lost revenue, but once again, what is the why of why we're open? We're not why. The why cannot be because we're going to lose a bunch of money. Guess what? We are. But there's going to be some things that are going to happen. But if our why is always about the health of the people and of our staff, we will get through this. And there, when the shaming happens, which has already happened to facilities here in Arizona, a little bit here at Augusta Ranch with a couple of posts on social media of why would I be open, I can know that when I look in the eyes of the people who are playing Augusta Ranch, I'm thinking about their families, I'm thinking about their grandkids, and that their grandkids, because once again, I've got grandmas and grandpas out here playing, a lot of families too. But I have to take on that responsibility as the owner operator to say, I'm going to make sure they're as safe as possible because they want to get outside. For the very reason that PGA Hope has been an amazing program for the PGA of America of getting veterans out of their houses because of the suicide rates. Listen, we might not be there yet in this, in this seclusion in our homes, but at some point we need to get out. I see more people in the neighborhoods now than ever. So I guess that's all I would say, Jay, is what's going on out here is some of the basics, sanitizing the golf carts and sanitizing the buckets of balls, washing the buckets, keeping spacing, increasing the distances on our range, making sure that people aren't hovering in the shop, putting cones on the floor to make sure they stand where they need to stand. We're doing all of those things. But I think the most critical thing of all of this, whether it's a legislator, whether it's a customer or even a staff person, you have to tell them that the why of this, and you have to mean it, is about people and the health of people. And that's what golf is about, getting people outside to enjoy some time and some normalcy in this very unprecedented time.
It felt like cognitive dissonance to see, the backdrop of what's happening around the country, and then to hear when this was starting that the tee sheets were filled up, crazy filled up, and more than usual in a lot of places. So, what does that tell you for a moment in time? It's like, well, holy cow, what we offer is what people want, especially when they're cooped up. It's, it is a salve for a lot of people. So, let's look to the new normal now. Let's say we're beyond the peak and we're coming down, and we're trying to figure out now, how do we navigate, how do we learn from this? How do we navigate the new normal? Because Americans are prone to want to get back quickly to old habits and old ways of doing things, right? After September 11th, everything changed as far as security around the country. Now we don't even think twice about the security measures that are out there, but at the time it was all new. Now we're entering this place where we may see a lot of new things in American society and culture, and that's going to make its way to the golf course, right? So on one hand, we may see a flood of pent-up demand and discovery about how wonderful golf is as something to get out there and do with your families right now. The second hand of that may be, what's the new normal going to be for the operator, right? So what are you thinking about long-term as far as what you see the effects of this could mean for in the DNA of the golf operations?
Yeah, right. I mean, all of this federal money's coming in, and will people continue to do some discretionary spending? That's a tough one, because there's also a time, a recession is called a recession for a reason, because you tend to save, and you tend to just go, okay, I need to worry about me for a while and not go out there and buy a car or buy a set of clubs or even go play golf. And this is where I think lies the advantage. We're talking about the future. I see a lot of questions right now. We're certainly going to get to those questions going on now, but I do think it's important to talk about what happens afterwards. I think there was no better time than right now, not right now, excuse me, but once we get past this, right, of the way we're going to sell golf. If it's just going to be, once again, about this 8% of the population, I think we're going to swing and miss. It's not about score and stance and swing. I think it's going to be about spending time with your family, the things that we know already, that it's good for fitness, I mean, it's 2,000 calories, 10,000 steps. It's good for your family. You can play it forever, generationally. Start selling the smiles and the memories that we're creating on golf courses every day. I think even in the Flyers, Ted Lothario did an amazing job. He's with the NGF now, but when he was with the PGA of talking about in your Flyers, putting pictures of people having fun. That's what we need to do. You can't be afraid of foot golf. Those things that we can do on the golf course, whether you have 90 acres or 150 or 200, utilizing that to make sure that families are staying together. The result will be profit, but the why cannot be. Yeah, the why's got to be about what we're doing for people. So I think one, it's going to be a mentality, Jay, of how am I marketing my facility? Is it going to be the same 10,000 names I always have? Am I going to try to reach out with some Facebook advertising or other forms of communication to local businesses of talking about staying local? People want to do that now. Can we leverage that when we're done with this? But at the end of the day, we're going to be judged on what we did during this crisis. So I just make sure anybody, if you're out there cutting corners, if you're allowing that group of 12 to kind of congregate after their round out by your restaurant, don't do it. Don't do it. You've got some responsibility here to tell them to separate. I know they're entitled to their own liberties, and I get it. But also we have a responsibility as PGA professionals and NGCOA golf course owners. And even if you don't have those letters, to be responsible.
It's funny that you mentioned having to split up the group. Like for a while there, it was like TSA were the bad guys that made you, take that water bottle out. It's like, oh man, this is bad. And then all of a sudden it turned to where when you're in line for to get through security, and if you see someone with their water bottle, now you're kind of getting upset with them because they're slowing it down. They're the ones that might be. And so there may be a point at which the golfer or the consumer in general is aware of the social responsibility aspect of proper behaviors, when there are viruses out there in the world, or to take these safe measures. Hopefully there'll be some self-policing and a new consciousness about this. So it's not all on the business owner to be the bad guy and to have to implement all of these things, but there'll be a shared consciousness of all of this, right? One day. But who knows? But I think there could be a renaissance for golf that comes out of this. There could be. I don't want to be opportunistic about it. I'm just saying it may be that wonderful thing that people gravitate towards. Just like after September 11th, President Bush said, although the timing was bad, get out there and go shopping with your family. Well, like you said, nobody wanted to go out there shopping, but a new consumerism rose not long after that as well. So who knows what may come out of this. So Don, we've got about 15 minutes left. Why don't we jump to some of these questions? And I'll say this, we've got a lot of questions here. Too many we're going to probably be able to answer today, but we will answer every one of them. And we'll make sure that the NGCOA staff, whatever we don't answer, we will answer offline and share a link to the answers to the questions when we send out the recording of this video. So we'll do our best to answer everybody's questions. So Don, I'll leave it to you to cherry pick the questions that you and I will attempt to answer.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I mean, we can kind of generalize some of them. I'm scrolling through, and I apologize to everybody. I'm on an iPad, and because we're making this happen because it's that important. We're not going to be in some studio right now. I think Jay, some of the questions, as I'm scrolling through, I think a lot of them can be answered, and I don't mean to kind of generalize, but I think at the core of any decision that your facility right now, whether it's talking to the staff about what's going on now and what's going to happen. Let's be honest, as an owner operator, the rules for unemployment now are very wide open. Anybody could file for unemployment, and they have at Augusta Ranch. Now, am I going to say, oh, my unemployment rates are going to go up, so I better not tell them about this information? You got it wrong. I mean, they're either your family or they're not. And so I think being very transparent to the staff, being very transparent to all of the golfers has to be the why behind why you're giving them the answers. I know policies and procedures are important. And if you didn't write those, you better get back to why they were written in the first place. Like, for instance, rental clubs at Augusta Ranch. We'd gotten away from the rental club people bringing them back to the facility. Or bringing them back to the golf shop. They were just leaving them on the cart, and then the outside service person would put them on the shelf. Now, it seems pretty innocuous. What's the difference? We've been doing that a long time. Well, now in this circumstance, that's critical because I got to make sure those grips and those clubs are all wiped down. I got to make sure that bag is wiped down. So let's get back to the best practices of making sure that we take someone's driver's license when they do it. I'm going to sanitize it. I get it. But I want them to come back to the shop to make sure that those clubs are clean. That ensures it for the next person they're going to rent them. So those are some basic policy procedures that have always been in place, but now the why of why we're doing them is even more important. So I think the key is, whether it's dealing with staff or whether they're coming back or leaving, being very honest with them and telling them that, listen, I know at Augusta Ranch has been very effective, Jay, of just being very transparent about the financial difficulties we're having. We missed, the revenue by $100,000 in March. That's not going to be easy for us to survive. But they all know that if anybody's going to sit in their paperwork today for this CARE Act, it's going to be me, because I want to make sure that everybody's employed as long as possible and they get this money. And if they want to do the extended Family First Coronavirus Act, with the family medical leave, then I'm going to tell them about it. I'm not going to hide from it if that's what they want to do, if they've got families to take care of. So I think really a lot of the answers to the questions I'm seeing are, what's your why? You know, what is the reason of why you're making these decisions? Of course, you've got to abide by the laws. So I hope I didn't miss anything. It's a little difficult for me, Jay. I'm going to be very candid, you know, to kind of scroll through these individually.
Let me jump into a couple.
But if you've got one in there, yeah, if you see one, let me know.
Yeah, like Jeff Witt, good NGCOA member for a long time. He's saying on single cart issue, you know, we've taken the approach that if you sleep together, live together, and came in the same car together, they can ride together. Everyone else is a single rider, and they've heard mixed messages on this. And is there a position with the park and play on that particular note? I mean, I don't have the checklist in my mind, but I'll certainly say you can't go wrong if you're erring on the side of safer than not. So you certainly can have mixed messages on, yeah, we're allowing two people. The optics on that are bad, you know, just in general. But if you have the volume of cars to be able to put people out in single rider, I would say just do that and make that your policy. I mean, that's just my personal advice would be that. Even though I understand sleep together, live together, you came in the same car together, you think, well, reasonably, you should be able to share this because if they were in the car together, then they're probably sharing germs anyway. But when they get to your course, if you take a safer measure than they took in the car, you can't go wrong. That's just my advice. And I don't know if the park and play honestly addresses it quite like that, but that's what I would say. Don, I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I know. And I think it's such a fluid situation that's actually happening here, right? I felt that right away, if you rode in the same car together, you could ride in the same car together. Seemed like a good idea. I mean, seems to make sense, but I'm not fully realizing that they're probably picking up 2 or 3 people on their way in. This isn't a husband and wife, it's 3 buddies. Now, if they don't care because they're 80 years old, and believe me, I have them playing Augusta Ranch, that they're like, this is all a conspiracy. I could care less about it. Well, maybe the 40-year-old lady who brought her 2 kids who are out there putting on my putting green right now do take it seriously.
Yeah. So
I have to think about everybody at Augusta Ranch, staff included. And so we're asking a more poignant question at the counter now, just to say, did you guys rode together? Are you living together? So to me, if you're living in the same house, then okay, we'll put you in the same cart. I'm fine with that, but it's no longer in the same car together, cart together. I think it's going to be, do you live in the same house? Then you can be in the same cart. Otherwise, I'm sorry. And guess what? Yeah. I might lose rounds of golf. I might lose rental fees on carts. But once again, what is my why? Is it real? I'm happy to be open because I'm happy that people can enjoy the outside, get their vitamin D, get their heart rate up a little bit as they're walking down the fairway. So if they just got to walk and I have to force them into walking, oh, well, you know, once again, I'm sorry, it's 10,000 steps, 2,000 calories to walk 18 holes of golf. If that's what I forced you to do because I ran out of carts, well, maybe that's okay. Yeah. We got to stick by the rules and protect our clients and our staff. That has to be the why behind everything we do right now. We will get shamed that this is about money. And I know it's not about a lot of people I'm talking about. We know some operators that
There's a great tip on here.
Yeah.
There's a great tip from Tracy Feldman. If owners and operators are concerned about the optics of this, to turn off the tagging and check-ins on your social media so that players or, you know, who are bragging about being out on the golf course can't necessarily post photos of 2 in a cart and people not social distancing. So it's not a bad tip right there. Because you know, in the universe of social media, you lose total control. But control that which you can control, and that means tagging and checking in if you don't think that it'll be helpful to the universe right now. So that's a great tip. Thank you for that.
That is awesome. You know, I mean, even for me, I feel that I told the staff, listen, I'm going to be hypersensitive to this because if there's anybody that they'd love to show did something wrong, it's going to be me. I put myself out there on these social media videos of saying I'm doing all these things the right way. If they catch any of us with a picture on social media doing it the wrong way, it could be very damaging to all of us. And so we have to just do this the right way for the right reasons. And the staff has to know that we're doing it because of health, not because of it, not a procedure, but because of people.
And there are a couple of questions here consistent with public courses that have membership programs, you know, the recurring revenue membership programs or what have you. Private clubs generally, I think those are staying open, are still charging dues from what I understand, and that's their lifeblood. But for those that have those public courses that have charged for a season pass or have the ongoing membership programs, you know, local card holders, whatever it is, I think they're looking for advice on, do you offer refunds? I mean, if your course is closed for 2 or 3 months, let's say, and someone spent $500 on a season pass and they literally can't play, what do you think?
Yeah, we've talked about that here because we're in this seasonality. Some people want to buy summer passes, and everybody who's buying our summer pass, which is good April through September, wants to know, Don, if Ducey closes you, what are you going to do? And what we've decided is that we're going to prorate it. I mean, we might weight it based on rates, structures, shoulders of seasons. I mean, I can get very complicated in this equation to give the money back. But what our first response is, absolutely, you're not going to lose on this. What we do is give you golf cash. We use the software, and golf pays out there too, but with Sagacity Golf, we're using golf cash instead of credit cards. At least we're really encouraging our play to do it. You could do this with a simple gift card. I think if you threw it out there and said, well, I know you want to support Augusta Ranch and we're in a tough time right now, I'm absolutely going to give you credit for this. But do you mind if I do it maybe as a credit on next year's pass, or maybe a gift card, or better yet for me, golf cash? And every single person, man, that'd be awesome. I'd that. So I'm not necessarily taking money out of the till, crediting a card, because they want to support me. I think if I've learned anything, is how much support I've had. People are coming out of the woodworks going, Don, can I pick the range for you? Don, can I turn cards for you? Don, can I clean cards for you? I mean, it's been amazing. Of course, I can't let them do that because I got to make sure I'm doing it the right way. But people are going to want to stay local. So I think as long as whatever funds, certainly don't tell them no. You can't have this check in a sense where you say, sorry, once you pay and leave, you're done. The muni have to lay down a little bit on this. I think gift cards, golf cash, things like that could be the answer. Credits towards future passes could be the answer.
Yeah, good advice. There is a question here that I don't think we have the expertise to answer, but I do want to bring it up, and let's see what we can find out offline for everybody. But it's a course operator that says, I'm at a golf course in New Hampshire and not open yet. Are we allowed to ask returning employees and members to quarantine for 2 weeks before they come to the facility? That I don't know. That's an interesting question. My thinking is, if you required someone to be quarantined, let's say one of your staff members to be quarantined for 2 weeks, then you allow them to come and work, and they no longer quarantine themselves from that point forward. What's the difference? You know, I mean, they may start on day one with an assurance that they've been quarantined for 2 weeks, but as soon as they come to work on day 2 and they have not continued that quarantine, then it's busted. That's the way I see it. For your customers or your members to have to be quarantined before coming to the business, I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. A lot of these I'm sure would be directives that your state level health officials and state level agencies would dictate what those rules of engagement are. So to Kevin, who posted that question, definitely look to the state of New Hampshire on that question, whatever the business community is there, the State Chamber of Commerce. But I'll have the NGCOA staff also look into this, because I think it's an interesting question. If this gets worse, if we haven't seen a peak, these kinds of measures maybe, at least the desire to exercise these measures may be greater, in the next several weeks. So
yeah, I think if I was going to have to fall back on, Don, why'd you make that decision and quarantine that person? I want to have some backing of that. Well, I just followed exactly what the federal government said, because let's be honest, this disease or this virus is it's such a fluid thing. Now they're saying you could have it and have no symptoms whatsoever, maybe even test negative, and next week you test positive. I mean, I don't even know what to listen to anymore, but I do know this. I've got to have something to base a decision on right now, because people are standing in front of me. And so, yeah, I think I would answer that question to say, better safe than sorry. If they get quarantined, and sorry, I want you to wait, but I just would have some basis. I agree with you. Yeah, if we could get Ronnie on that, Jay, that would be awesome, of just some guidelines, or at least what website to go through. I know Arizona has its own website for COVID. And so, yeah, have that to fall back on to say, well, this is what they're doing. This is why I'm doing it. And then if they are wrong, they could say, well, Don, why'd you allow that to happen? This is where I went to. It wasn't a gut feeling.
How do you require that person? How does that person prove that they did it? They can just say, yes, I quarantined for the last 2 weeks. So where's the burden of proof as at the intersection of burden of proof and liability on this one, right? Who's taking on the liability if you're guaranteeing to your customers, all of my staff have been quarantined before coming to work? Can you prove that? And so this is uncharted territory for all of us. So, we'll seek the best answers we can, but I think we need to lead with common sense, with an eye to safety at all times. But let's use common sense right now as best as we can. So we're coming up on the last couple minutes here, Don. So I want to close out certainly by just recognizing the hard work of everybody that's in the golf industry working on these issues. To the golf course owners and operators, you got to know our staff, we feel every day what you're going through. We're not golf course owners and operators, but we wake up every day working for you. And so we understand what is happening right now. Closures, revenue, spigots getting turned off. This is unprecedented. It's not even like wartime, where wartime businesses could remain open, right? And had a disruption. So, we're doing everything we can to support you, and we'll continue to do that. And I admire everybody that's going through this. Just do your best to keep your head up and make as best decisions as you can make. It's showing that golf is good. I know that our California affiliate out there launched a campaign called Golf is Good. If anything, this is showing that. I want everybody to stay safe and healthy. We unfortunately found out a couple of days ago that we actually lost one of our NGCOA members, Conrad Benitez, who has the Orchard Golf and Country Club in the Philippines. Was a staple at our conferences for years. The most wonderful man. We're going to miss his friendship, but it was he succumbed to COVID-19. So, this is just a message that please stay safe out there to our members. We want to see all of you at our conferences when we certainly resume those events. But I want to thank everybody for being here today. Don, certainly we'll turn it over to you for any closing comments, and we'll be here same time next week at, as well at the next Golf Business Live Friday edition. But Don?
Yeah, I think if anybody watching this right now has received a call or a text message out of the blue from somebody you haven't heard in a long time, and just said, "Hey, how's it going, pro? How's it going, owner?" I think right away it lifts your spirits a little bit to somebody's out there and feeling the same way. If there's ever a time for us to engage the natural, not the social networking, but just the networking of texting and talking to people, now's the time. I was talking to Mark Justina. He's a fellow board member on the NGCOA, runs a facility completely different than mine, and he's in a different season. But there's some things it's hard for me to explain to my wife and my daughter. It's some things that are hard for me to explain to the staff here, and certainly the customers. The pressures of making sure that I know everything I need to know, asking that question like we just talked about. Did you really sit out for 2 weeks? These pressures are immense. I can't tell you that I haven't felt them, because I have. But I know it made me feel better talking to Jim Dorman, made me feel better talking to Glenn Lee, it made me feel better talking to Mark Justina, made me feel better talking to Rock Lucas, Del Ratcliffe, all these guys that I've surrounded myself with. And I know you have too, and gals. Kathy Harbin's been very, the text messages, the emails that are going on. This is the time if you're feeling down, reach out right now. If you're feeling like you're getting beat up, just text somebody you haven't talked to in a long time. How are you dealing with this? I guarantee it's going to make you feel better. That's why associations were created in the very first place, whether the PGA or the NGCOA. It's to get all of us around each other so we can share best practices, share experiences, share the heartaches in which we're dealing with right now. So engage your social network, and not necessarily digitally. You want to hear their voice on the phone. It's going to make you feel better. Just the way this did today, hopefully, some information, and knowing that there's others that care. And we're all going to get through this, because we're all in this together.
So look forward to seeing what happens over the next 7 days, and we'll be back next Friday to talk about what's happened in the past week and what we see coming down the road. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Yes. And we appreciate your support and involvement in the organization. Have a safe weekend.
Have a good week.